Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. The fat lad Neil Pickup here with you in the mother fluffing house. And for once, I can tell you that it's going to be a hell of a lot colder where I'm sat than where my guest is sat. From the sunny, warm climes of Alabama, it is indeed Justin Bishop. Mate, it's been a while. How's it hanging?
Oh, it's pretty good here, man. It's actually starting to cool. It's in the 80s now.
Oh, just the 80s. Yeah. It's cold. I bet your nipples are rock hard.
Yeah.
How you go on with that? Yeah, for me, mate, that's like as warm as it gets. When it's 80 degrees, I'm passing out. I'm not good.
Oh, you don't need to come here.
No, it wouldn't do me any good. Actually, it probably would do me good. Probably like being in the corner. I'd end up weighing like a normal human body weight.
It's probably exactly like a sauna.
Yeah. How's life anyway? You keeping busy during coronavirus?
Oh yeah, man. We had a storm come through about 6 weeks ago, and it was a real bad hailstorm. So
okay.
Along with the work I already had, so it's just been double time on work. But it's a good problem to have.
Isn't it just?
A lot of people's not able to work right now, so I'm very fortunate.
Fair enough, brother. Fair enough. Now, I know that you're pushed for time. Obviously, you are self-employed and you're doing your own thing over there. So we want to make this time count as much as we possibly can. And really what I wanted to do, Justin, as we do with all the deep inside interviews that we do with you guys, is try to take this right back to sort of your earliest beginnings, your childhood, and how you sort of first became involved in competitive sport more than anything else. But with you, it's a little bit deeper than that. I wanted to also dig into sort of the whole family dynamic, because when you talk about the Bishops, it's always the Bishops. It's not just Justin Bishop. You've got your dad, you've got your brother, all who have been involved in the sport. So I think it's quite interesting for people who don't know a great deal about you and your sort of general family dynamic to give us a bit of a start point on that one, Justin, and sort of how you guys, the age difference in you, things like that, just so we get a foundation of how that came about, because you seem to me to be a pretty tight-knit set of people over there.
Yeah, we, small town family style. As far as the arm wrestling, pretty much, my dad and my brother was working out in the gym. I had never really worked out up to that point. And my brother and dad had always arm wrestled. And again, I'd never really arm wrestled. I was the guy that be working up the bets on the side and trying to make the money. And long story short, my brother actually found a tournament in Mobile, and I rode with him. It's like a 4-hour ride, so I was like, road trip, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked me into pulling, and I ended up winning the amateur class right-handed, and I pulled the left-handed pro class and won second to Jeremy Fraley, who was like number 3 or 4 left-handed.
Yeah, Jeremy's really solid, particularly left-handed.
Yeah, and I didn't do too bad. He obviously beat me, but and then I won the right-hand overalls as well against Lee Culpepper, who at the time was a pretty active
another solid puller.
Yeah. And so my brother's probably right at 2 years younger than me, and my dad's probably right at 18 years older than me. So, it's not a big gap between father and son, and it's definitely not a big gap between brothers. So, we from there for about 3 years straight, man, we worked out 5 days a week, arm wrestled, every week. And, at least once a month we went to a tournament within driving distance. And,
was that sort of like a bonding exercise for you guys, or were you already pretty tight prior to that? What was your sort of dynamic and relationship before you got into arm wrestling? Had you been involved collectively in any other sports growing up, or?
I'd say, so turn the clock back a little bit. So my dad and mom they were separated when I was about 6. And, I always lived with my mom a lot more than my dad, and, the opposite from my brother. And, my dad got remarried, had a couple more kids, and mom never really got remarried. We just, we moved around a lot, so I was never really involved in sports. My brother played a couple different sports. I was a mean ass kid, Neil. You know, I'm not gonna say mean, but I was very angry. You know what I mean? And really didn't. Still to this day, sometimes wonder why I was so angry. But keep the story moving. I got kicked out of school when I was about 16, so I moved out of my house and got a job, and never really looked back from there. But at the time, I was piddling in a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been, and
just digging into that a little bit, Justin, and we'll only go as far as you want to go here, mate. But what was the reason for that, mate? Were you sort of picked on? Were you bullied? Where was it coming from? If you had to sort of try and pinpoint that now, do you think you're just a naturally aggressive lad, or do you, was there another reason for that?
I think to an extent, as men, we are naturally, I wouldn't say aggressive, but but definitely my family, they're very opinionated people, and you've met them. I mean, how they are. So I definitely have that gene. But it was kind of, I don't know. I think live in so many different areas. We'd live in a lot of government funded apartments, and so you'd have all kind of, like, we lived in one that was all African American, pretty much. I mean, me and two other white kids. So I didn't have many friends there. And then we'd move to one, and it even happened in the white communities. You was the outsider, and we'd be there a couple months, and we'd move somewhere else for whatever reason. And she had two different boyfriends for several years that were black as well. So if I'd go to the white community, I'd get picked on for that. I go to the black community, same thing. So, it was, especially in the South, and I don't like to tell people that, because people already have this vision of the South like we're so racist, and it's really not that. Yeah, it's really not that, because, I mean, it's the society we live in today, really, but I won't even go down that rabbit hole. But, it was several things. I think I was always angry because I wanted my mom and dad to work out, and they didn't. I don't know for sure that's what it is. I'm sure that's part of the chip that was on my shoulder. And, and I always had my own style, like all the white kids. They was wearing boots and polos, and I didn't I didn't wear stuff like that. I like Air Force Ones and regular tank tops and stuff. And, the black kids always tell me I'm trying to be black because I wear the same kind of shoes or whatever. Just kids being mean-ass kids, really. And, I don't know. So I turned to drugs. I started smoking weed probably around 13, and which I don't view as a really bad drug, but definitely at 13 you don't need to be smoking weed.
No.
And but around 16, like I said, I got kicked out of school. I'd been to boot camp by that point. And
was that for fighting or for drug related? What was that through?
Well, I got suspended a lot of times for fighting. And
were you a big kid, Justin?
No. That was one thing. I didn't take any shit. If I felt that little feeling we were gonna fight, I'm hitting you first. Yeah. So I would always get
never a bad strategy.
Yeah, and a lot of times, and I'd see this systematic racism they're talking about, except the other way. Like, a lot of times I would get suspended, but the other kid wasn't, and a lot of times, he was black. And I even had the principal tell me one time that it was because it was better for him to stay at school than to go home. And I was like, you ever met my dad? I don't want to go home. I'm not trying to go home to that. Not after what I just did. But anyway, I don't even know why I brought that up. That's something that stands out in my memory for some reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, they sent me off on the boot camp because I was on probation, and the judge told me if I got any more trouble, we're gonna send you off. So they sent me off to a holding facility, which is pretty much a prison for kids. You sit in your cell 22 hours a day. And I was there for about 3 weeks. Then I got sent to this 30-day program. It's pretty much like a junior military camp. You just run a shit ton and, learn some discipline. And it did me some good, but when I got back to real life, I thought I was a little hard ass now. And anyway, I moved out, and I started selling drugs on the side, small amounts at first, and then it was mostly weed just so I could pay for my own habit, you know. And then I started selling other stuff like cocaine, and I did that for like 6 months before I even tried it. But when I screwed around and tried it, man, that's, you know, probably went down that road for about 6-8 months. And I finally just woke up one day and, you know, looked myself in the mirror, and I went from like a small guy already, 150, 160 pounds, to probably 140, 135, you know. And I noticed I'd keep all the lights on. I'd have guns in every corner, and nobody's even threatened me, really. You know, I had been robbed prior to this, but it was years before that. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know, is this where you want your life to be in 10 years? You know, because this is where it's going to be if you don't change some shit. Where you're at right now, you don't own anything, you know, you barely have any friends, you know. But I don't know, that was the day I feel like God was like, hey, wake up.
Yeah.
You know, we got more in store for you than this, but you got to change your way of thinking, you know, because I just had so much not give a shit in me, you know, that I just blow anything off. It didn't matter, you know. I don't care about that, you know. And really, I didn't see it at the time, but I was being so selfish, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But because most of my problems were brought on by my attitude and the way I viewed things. And I never really seen that till the last couple of years when I started employing younger people. Like,
funny how that works, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, man, if I'd have listened to some of these people, but I hit that point though, and luckily it was right around the time that I met my wife, and right around the time that my brother and dad started working out. They were just doing bench programs, trying to get their bench up. And they're like, you know, my brother knew my situation. My dad I've never really talked to him about it. And, but he's like, come in the gym with us. You know, he finally talked me into it. I started working out with him. And like I said, after about 3 months of working out, you know, I got on, some weight back on me, feeling good. And, we went to that tournament, and, you know, we all did really well. Dad and Josh both won their amateur class. And it was the first thing I'd ever won, you know, other than I used to shoot pool a lot when I was a kid. We lived by a pool hall, for several months. And, when I was able to drive, I'd go to that pool hall every evening and, shoot pool. So, and prior to that, I skipped over. Me and Dad used to play golf, every Sunday before church, probably for about, I don't know, till I went and lived with Mom again. Mm-hmm. You know, but I enjoyed sports where it was you in the sport, you know.
Yeah, one single man sports, single person sports, rather than team activities.
Yeah, and I love watching team activities, you know, but I'm not too good of a team player. I would say I've gotten better at it over the years, but so yeah, arm wrestling. When I figured out I had a kind of a natural ability for it, it really intrigued me. And, you couldn't wipe the smile off my face all the way back home after that tournament. It's like, I might be good at something, Yeah,
yes, you are. Yes, you are. Justin, when you started to train with your dad and your brother, were there any sort of telltale early signs that you had that propensity for strength, for timing, for movement? Because you've obviously, I think it's fair to say that from where I've been sat, your strength, your all-around power has gone on a very, very natural evolution, a very steady, linear progression. But I'm going to say that your hand and wrist exceeded your strength tenfold early in your career. Yeah. It looked like that was your absolute A game. Number one, your hand's pretty big for your class. Mm-hmm. And you had really, really, really early signs of an exceptional or elite level hand and wrist. When the rest of your game, and I mean this with the greatest of respect, we've talked openly about this before, the rest of your game didn't match that bit. But that pocket, that corner, was rock strong, early doors. When did you first become aware of that?
It was probably second or third tournament I really noticed, because we only pulled that one amateur class, and we quickly figured out, you know, we can go ahead and start pulling open or pro. And you know, I've always been a carpenter by trade ever since, you know, I was able to put on a nail bag. We worked every summer with Dad, picking up wood all day, driving nails. So that's where my hand got strong. But when I noticed it was, you know, I mean, I've trained with Josh and Dad in between tournaments, obviously, but they outweighed me so much that I couldn't tell. I mean, they could just about hold me in the center when we started. So I really couldn't tell, and I'd be super sore too. So I'd go to these tournaments and line up with guys and just blow through them and come off the table so surprised. You know, like, I didn't think it'd be that easy, because I've been pulling Dad and Josh, who are also that way in their strong suit, or their class, I'm sorry. So I really started to see about that. My third tournament was nationals, and it was the first elite guy I ever pulled was Jeff Hale. And it was 2011, and I drove down there, and at this point we had been arm wrestling for about 3 or 4 months, and I figured out what YouTube was, because I never even had a Facebook or any of that till I started arm wrestling. I didn't even never used the internet, but I've been looking up these guys in the 154 class, because that's what I was pulling at the time. And I get there, and first time I ever met Chad Silvers, a couple other guys, but excuse me. I grab, I'm trying to remember his name. He was from Florida. Anyway, I've been noticing, and I thought to myself, watching him, you know, he has the top 2 to 3 top roll in the South. You know, his probably number 2 and number 3, and I smoked him. And I come off the table, and I looked at Dad, and I was like, I'm gonna, you know.
Yeah, I've got something here.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, I didn't even feel that guy. Like, what happened? You know, and they called me and Jeff up next. And I guess, Jeff's that smart, you know, which I've very rarely seen him top roll anyway, but I think he'd seen my strategy, which was pretty rookie. You know, I just grab your thumb and try to load up with you and, you know, and go. And, you know, obviously he wasn't having that. He went straight to a ref grip and dove straight in and flashed me so fast I didn't know what the hell happened. And anyway, I ended up, I think I got third, because I tied up with Jeremy Pappy and had a war. I mean, a good minute and a half war. And then I pulled Josh Hanlon. I think that's how you say it. And
Hanlon. Yeah.
Yeah, and he beat me for second. And I was so pissed, because that was the first tournament I had been to that I felt like I placed a lot lower than I couldn't have beat Jeff that day, but I definitely would have beat Josh, and it just burned me up. That, you know, that was the first time in my career I was like, man, you had it and you screwed it up. You know, you was burned out, blah blah blah. And anyway, I don't think I've pulled him since. Yeah. I think last time I seen him was 2013 when I pulled Janis Amolins. Yeah.
So that I mean, that's an interesting dateline check there. So 2011, or was it 2011 or 2010? You said it was sort of 4 months. Yeah.
2011.
Was your start. So you were basically 2 years in when you pulled the class that, because for those people out there who don't know, I think it's fair to say, and I'm not trying to do you any disservice here, Justin, that you certainly came on the international radar at the U.A.L tournament where you stood up Janis in the heats.
Yeah.
And that sort of goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier. One thing that you've always had is that natural bite. You don't shy away from a great deal, and there's been plenty of evidence of that throughout your career. But what I would say, that was sort of a flash in the pan of things to come. I think people sort of, in a way, you got thrown to the wolves a little bit after that, because you were put into events and classes where you perhaps didn't really belong. You were sort of over-escalated. because you got a flash of brilliance against Janis really early, and then you were sort of, right, okay, let's fire this guy in with anybody and everybody who's really strong in this environment, which is not necessarily the best way to go about things. And you haven't got as well-rounded a game as we've seen recently. I think as time's gone on, you've sort of put that additional layer of power, a little bit more power, a little bit more power, a little bit more well-rounded, certainly a great deal more side and more control in less than comfortable positions has gone your way. In the first instance, when I saw you in the final that day with Janis, and I spoke to Janis after that, a couple of days after that actually, and Janis said, yeah, that guy Justin is really dangerous if you face him his way. His hand and wrist are really a high level, but he doesn't have the arm to match that yet. And that was where my first basis on you was. But I thought that over time, if you stuck with it, that you'd obviously progress massively, and that's definitely what you've done, mate. What I wanted to sort of check in with yourself around was, at that U.A.L tournament, were you sort of shocked by that? Did you expect that? What was yours? Because I know outwardly an arm wrestler or any athlete can give off a certain appearance, a certain sort of outward persona. What was going on in your head? Were you confident? Did you feel overall? Where were you at?
I was so confident that day, Neil, that nobody would beat me. Cause I mean, and I hate to say it, I feel like I was in the best shape I had ever been in that day. Mm-hmm. Up till now. I mean, when I pulled Rob, I think that was overall body wise as strong as I've ever been. Definitely not the best shape. I just burned up way too quickly in that match, but I was eating healthy for about 4 months straight. The weight cut was nothing. I've been training, nonstop for several months. Cause if you remember, that tournament was supposed to pay out like, I want to say 50 grand to first place, 30 grand to second. It was supposed to be a really big tournament. And, that's one reason all that competition was there, but you know how it fell out. And anyway, that's the first time I've been on a plane since I was about 10 years old too. So that was that whole thing was a new experience for me. That was the first time I ever been to Las Vegas. So, I'm walking around the MGM and, all these other hotels, but yeah, as far as the arm wrestlers, I didn't know almost anybody there. Like, I didn't know who Janis Amolins was. I didn't know, who Eduardo Tiete was. I knew Alan Fisher. I think Jamie Sheldon was there. I knew him. I knew who John Brezink was and Devin Lorette, and that was about it. And when I showed up, I got to talking to met a few guys, and they're like, man, you don't know who that is? You don't know who this is? I mean, we literally got, arm wrestling royalty here, push cars there, so many great arm wrestlers. I had no clue, who was really around me at the time. And Todd Zilla was there. I didn't even know who he was at the time. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Bob Brown walks up to me, and he's been checking me out or whatever. So he shakes my hand. He's like, what's going on? Starts talking to me. He's like, all right, so, what class you pulling? I said 165. And he's like, you're pretty big to be in the 165 class, Mm-hmm. And Janis walks in at that time, and he's like, well, there's a guy that's going to win the 165 class. And, Janis is like 2 or 3 inches shorter than me. And he's more of a natural 65er than I am.
Yeah.
So he's he seems a little smaller, and I'm just like, that guy. Because at the time, I'd been pulling about 2 years, so I've been pulling up in weight classes locally. So mm-hmm. Nobody's really at the time had beat me that was around my weight or, anything close to my size. And I just look at him like, there's no way that guy's beat me today. Who's that? He tells me his name. I didn't even bother to look him up. I'm kind of glad I didn't. So the next day we start arm wrestling, and I think he was my third match. I arm wrestled some guy from California and beat him really quick. Luckily, got that early one out of the way. And then I pulled the Ukrainian, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then I pulled Janis. And now that was the first time I was like legit amped up. I know I'm the shit today, because I just heard 20 people tell me how good this guy was, how many world titles he's got, all of this. And I just smacked him like I didn't even feel him, and I'm like, I mean, that's, as you can probably tell watching the video, that's genuine emotion right there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note there is, not only is Janis really good, he's really good at that. He's really good at where you beat him. And I think that would have been a bit of a shock for Janis as well, because for you to have sort of beat him in arguably his most comfortable spot, the spot that he's made his career out of dominating, that'll send some shockwaves through anyone,
Yeah.
And you did it easy. In the final, he ran from that spot. He was looking for something else. And Janis won't mind admitting that. And he said after, he said, that guy's hand and wrist are stupid.
Yeah. Well, I talked to him a good bit afterwards, and he explained a couple different things. He believes that your reaction time is sort of genetic, or hereditary, And he started asking me about my dad and my brother, and which they weren't there that day, but we joined. That was the beginning of a good relationship between him and I, and a good little rivalry. I still tell him to that day, I beat you. I said, I seen your hand hit the pad. I said, he's like, I said, so we're 2 and like 5. You beat me like 5 times, but I got these 2, But I'm up on him left-handed. He beat me left-handed that day legitimately and hadn't beat me again left-handed, which I think we've only pulled twice. But I figured him out. If I can just hook him left-handed, I'm good. If you try to play with him too much up top, he's quick. He's very quick. That's where he gets me every time. Is I get too comfortable trying to match with him because I feel I'm stronger than him. And right before the go, he'll, let up a little bit of pressure and snap it. And I'm fucked. Now go, and I'm out here. Like, damn it.
Yeah. But, takes you out of your game. He's very, very intelligent guy. Very smart tactical arm wrestler. But I feel like we've jumped forward, and probably my fault, but I feel like we've jumped forward quite a lot. And I wanted to check back in on a couple of key things from my perspective. Number one, you said obviously you started training with your dad and your brother, and they were doing bench programs, this, that, and the other. Why arm wrestling, Justin? Where the hell did that come from?
It wasn't from me, but it is in our family. Like, my great grandpa used to do it. Both my grandpa and great grandpa, worked on oil rigs. They lived in my family originally from Alabama. He moved out in the 70s to Texas and, started working on oil rigs, and, they would call people from different counties to try to, beat my grandpa. And, he's told me a handful of stories where people actually beat him. And I talked to him now about it, and, cause he don't know the first technique. I mean, I'll show him stuff and he's like, that ain't how you do it. But, so the arm wrestling's always been in our family. Mm-hmm. I was just the one that didn't really intrigue until, I got on a table. But, like Dad always used to do it at the on the construction jobs and at the drag strip. We'd go drag racing on the weekends, and so it was never one event. We'd go to one event and make it about that and arm wrestling. So my brother was the same way in high school, and my sister was actually the same way in high school too. Okay. Until she got to about 8th grade, there wasn't a person in the school that could beat her. Till some of these gigantic little boys hit puberty, they couldn't beat them. Mm-hmm. And she's
so there's definitely girl. Like a strand of the genetics somewhere there that's giving you that propensity. Oh, yeah. I'm all the same way I'm taking it, all hand and wrist.
Yeah. Well, my grandpa, they didn't even know what top rolls were really. They just went straight in, side to side kind of thing. Dad the same kind of way. And for Dad, what always impressed me with him was he was so much smaller than a lot of his competition. But looking back on it, he was still being smart about it because he would make sure that he was on top. Even when, we're deep in the hook in the center, he'd make sure he was on top and engage his shoulder quickly. Mm-hmm. But, which I'm not going to lie now, he's freakishly strong anyway. I've boxed with this man so many times. He slapped me one time and slapped me to sleep. Yeah. I've seen him slap another grown man to sleep too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, snoring in the air, that shit crazy. But, yeah, he's got something in there because, I mean, he's all of 175 pounds and he rarely works out these days, and we practice twice a month, and he's still just as strong every time I pull him.
Tony's a bit of a natural athlete, though, isn't he? I mean,
yeah.
Time I've ever seen him, the man's in shape. He's just one of those guys that's just in shape, whether it's the manual labor, I don't know, whether he's genetically predisposed for that, I don't know, but he's always in shape. He's not carrying any fat, is he?
I think it's a combination. I think he has the genetics to look like that, but he stays active because my grandpa's definitely doesn't look like that. he's probably about 300, about 5'8". So, you know, but that's the difference in jobs too. He works for the city. So
then, was it your brother or your dad that saw the event in Mobile?
My brother.
So Josh got clocked that and off you go.
He was the only person that knew how to work a computer at the time. So, and it was Alabama State. I remember it was March 28th, I believe. I don't know why I remember that, but so this coming 2021 March will be 10 years in the sport. So the only thing I've done longer than that is be married. Yeah.
Similar challenges, mate. Yeah, that's it. That's how it rolls, isn't it? Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you was, you said that when you went to the U.A.L. event that you were sort of 2 years in or just there or thereabouts, but you had an enormous amount of confidence at that stage. So we missed, because we jumped straight to the U.A.L., we missed that little bit in between. You've obviously, I'm taking it, really cut your teeth. Were you really active in that period of time?
Oh yeah, we pulled at least 10 or 12 tournaments a year, you know, in between that 2.5 year span.
Okay.
And the thing we screwed up on, all right, for the first 3 months, we didn't know anything about arm wrestling other than what we seen on the internet. And at this time, there weren't a whole lot of instructional videos. You know, it was just watching matches. So all we were really collecting was a top roll was grabbing the thumb real hard and twisting, you know, and going back and not really doing a whole hand technique. So I really didn't develop my strongest suit to, you know, put it to use until probably a year and a half. Not long before I pulled Janis. So prior to that, I was doing a whole lot of the old school style top roll. And but we met up with Glenn Brooks about 3 months after. And he showed us, we went to Lee Culpepper's. I didn't even know he lived in Alabama. But anyway, they showed us, you know, we were practicing 5 days a week. We would work out. We had a table in the gym, and then we'd go over there and mess around. And so, man, when I tell you my arms were dead, I mean, I would drive home with my knees, and I would go in there, and I would wash my hair like this.
Yeah.
And because Dad and Josh were so much stronger than me, and I would get up there with them and try to work something, and they'd let me work, and then they'd just mow me down. So when we finally got up with Glenn, and he's like, "Y'all can't pull that many times a week." He's like, once a week at best, you know. So we took off like 2 weeks, and we go to Birmingham and pull with him. And you know, Glenn's 280, 300, something like that. So he's mowing through Josh and Dad, and I see them over there. They're up against the wall, and they're all white-faced and stuff. And I'm like, "What's wrong?" Oh man, you know,
achy breaky.
Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, this is how I've been feeling for like a month now. This is what y'all do to me. But you know, he finally showed me, like, you don't have to pull on the thumb, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we would go to tournaments, man, and I mean, I built that confidence because honestly, especially at 154, there was nobody that could match me, especially in the region. And it was just because I was so much bigger at that weight, you know. And when I was taking it like bodybuilder serious. I went and bought all kind of vitamins, all kind of proteins. So I was gaining weight like crazy. and I got up to about 170. I didn't have abs anymore. And I'm like, you maybe overdoing it a little bit. The weight cut's getting harder. So I started pulling 65, but, I finally found my way onto the rankings. I can't even remember who I beat for that, but, I was like, oh, we have rankings? I didn't even know this, so it's back when they had the board.
Yeah.
And, hell, I forgot what it was called, but, I was checking them out on there, and I remember I was like, I'm going to win nationals because I want my blue stars,
Yeah.
And, anyway, I was training for that, and, I ended up losing there. So I went to regionals, won regionals. I mean, I won 5 or 6 tournaments in a row, and, I looked on the rankings and I was like, who's the closest to me that I could beat, and Jason Rivas. Jason Rivas was number 5. And I was like, all right, we'll go down here and pull him. And he wasn't very active at the time, but it was the first really good top roller I pulled. And he actually beat my top roll. And I ended up having to hook him to beat him. And that was the same tournament that Cobra Rhodes and Chad Silvers pulled each other.
Mm-hmm.
Snook and Craig Two-Leg. Craig just had come back. So at the time, I know who these guys are now, so I was pretty excited to get to pull some of these guys, and I didn't get to pull nobody. I pulled Corey Miller, left-handed, and that was it. But, so I beat him. I was number 5 in America at the time. And Vazgen and Jeff Hale was at the top of the list, and Corey Miller. So, at the time, I'm like, I don't think I can beat Corey. I think I can beat Vazgen. Let's try Vazgen out. And I got it set up in Tennessee, and I think this was 2012. I don't even think I was a whole year deep. So I was like, screw it, let's go for the biggest sharks in the water. And man, I got that ass whipped. It was a real humbling experience, because to this day I feel I was stronger than him in every aspect of the game. There was no way, like, I feel like if we got dead center in the hook, I'm comfortable, you're comfortable, I would have beat him all day. But it never worked out that way.
You just can't, in a year, you can't put the layers on that Vazgen's got. So many layers of experience, where you're going to be in a bit of panic. It's another day at the office for a guy with that much experience,
Yeah, and at the time, like I said, I hadn't been beat by anyone near my size. So, in a good many tournaments. So, and it wasn't that I was overconfident, because I knew, I'd studied this man like a lot, and anyway, it was one of those things where I'm setting up super high, and it's just playing right into his game. I should have been at the back of the pad. So many things I see now, but like I said, it was a real humbling experience. And Vazgen, to his credit, was super professional about it. It was the last time I tried to make 54, and I got down to like 158. And I just texted him. I'm like, look, I'll give you half the money. We don't even have to pull if you don't want to. And he's like, no, it's fine. Start eating now if you want. And anyway, and he played it correct, because I think he knew that I wouldn't be able to last with him. So when we did go in the hook and I redlined him a little bit, he just stayed there, and let me burn my arm out. So, and like I said, I'm sitting up to the top roll and you hook me here and I'm just all out of place. So, but it was a very humbling experience. And, I don't think I would have done as well with Janis had I not taken that ass whipping.
Yeah.
Because it really set me on a path like, okay, I will not let a 145-pound man beat me ever again. So.
What about the aftermath, Justin? I mean, obviously when you came out of the U.A.L. tournament, and probably a similar situation with Vazgen, you'll have been feeling a certain way. If you go there and you're thinking to yourself, look, I'm going to prove everybody wrong today, I can't lose, and you really believe that, you've internalized it to the point where you believe in yourself to that degree, sometimes it can be a really dark time when you don't succeed. And yet everybody came away from the U.A.L. event singing your praises. it was certainly what put you on my radar, and I was like, who the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean? It was literally one of those, like, where did that guy come from? Yeah. Did you feel down about it? Were you up about, where were your thoughts after that?
I mean, I was upset, I didn't, initially right out the gate, that's when I let it all out. I just walked, to a space by myself for a couple of seconds. It usually doesn't take long just to kind of vent, like I thought, shit, I know. I was really pissed at the ref. I'm going to be honest. Harold Rodden, I didn't like you for a long time after that. And, and, we're still buddies today, but, it's one of those things where it's like, you beat him. What else do you have to do? And, it was a little different than Baskin. Like, don't get me wrong. I was very humbled by Janis, as well, but it was different. It was like, I clearly beat you in my mind, and you still somehow stayed in it enough to pull it out. I don't know. Because honestly, looking at the lineup that night, I thought Eduardo would win. Just, like I said, I didn't know who Janis was. I'd looked him up, but I'm like, I don't know any of the guys he's arm wrestling. So it was difficult for me. But stylistically, I thought Eduardo would be the hardest, and I blowed through him too. So I was a little bit upset, but after I got back home after a couple of days, I don't stay down too long. I'm way too active to stay down on myself, and I've been in some dark places in my life. So losing an arm wrestling match is not really gonna, it's not really gonna knock me off my feet. Yeah, I use it for, I really throw it to the back of the mind until I get in the gym, and I throw it back to the frontal lobe there and process it and eat all of it with the weights. And I don't know. For me, it's still hard to think about now. I hadn't thought about it in depth like this in a while. I mean, I get it all the time. I seen that video of you all the time the other day, and I'm like, it's a Shock the World video. I'm like, yeah. And that's about all I say about it.
Yeah. I don't know. Trying to forget about it. Compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I mean, because
if I had to pick two matches that really put my career, arm wrestling career on a higher pedestal, it's the two that I lost, and that's obviously the biggest one being with Janis, but the other bigger one being probably with Paul or Tony, or Rob, even Rob. I mean, that close every time, Neil, that close, but I mean, I'm not too down about it, cause at the end of the day, I know where I sit at, I feel like I could cut to 65 right now cause I'm pretty light. This whole Corona thing has like I said, my business and the Corona thing, I hadn't been training like I would like to, but I've been actually working on my house a lot. So I'm not as thick as I was, and I'm where I could make that cut if I needed to, and I feel like I would smoke Sam, and Tony would be my only competition. That's the way I feel, but I could be wrong. But I'm a guy that walks around, true middleweight, not really, because 200 and 205 to me is not really a middleweight. That's more of a light heavyweight.
Light heavyweight.
Yeah, and I mean, I can compete there, obviously. At 200 pounds though, man, I just feel so lethargic and fat. I'll walk up a ladder and I'm breathing hard. So I don't think my frame was built for that. While I feel really confident, anytime your chest is way out here, you feel a lot more confident. But the weights show that I'm stronger. But like with Rob, I was really worried about going in super fresh. I said I can't go in with any kind of nicks or injuries because I'm a flare up. And he gets stronger as the match goes, and I'm the opposite. So I never really did a whole lot of strength training, so to speak, like super heavy static holds and stuff. I would do probably 70% of my max, super high reps, trying to pack on the size. See, here I go again, feeding myself excuses of when I lost. This is why I put it to the back of my head.
Yeah. Well, you explain it because we spent a lot of time together at the pre and post that event, your shot at Rob, and it's very interesting what you've just said there, because I remember on the day I spoke to Rob after one of our conversations. Rob was saying, like, a lot of people are underestimating Justin because he's genuinely dangerous, and they're basing that on the fact that the guy, a little bit like Craig, you could say the same thing, isn't a true middleweight, i.e. the 205, 200-pound mark. More of a really solid 176, 187 type environment. That's really where he is. But he's very heavy coming into this. And he said he may be heavier than me, actually, on the scale. But the point that you do note on that is that when you guys were stood next to each other, Rob's got the frame. Massive forearm, huge hand. Just that superior frame to take the weight and to give him more of an extensive leverage advantage in more areas where you do have limitations there. So it's very interesting for me to hear you say that you've got potentially in the back of your mind somewhere there's that aspiration to go back to 65s and smack folk around a little bit, because that could be interesting.
Well, I mean, for me, I've just taken so many second places. You know what I mean? Like, the first 2 years that I pulled W.A.L, I beat every American lightweight right-handed, except for Janis, which is not American. The only person that beat me left-handed was Paul Talbot. You know, so, I mean, 2015 and 2016, the only person that beat me right-handed was Janis Amolins. So it was really, and that built up a little, I don't know what you'd call it. It really got to me, because I'm like, just stay the fuck at home, you know? I'm beating every other European, every other American. You just stay your bald ass at home and let me do my thing this year. You know?
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can't hate on it. I mean, you're probably the greatest lightweight of my era so far, you know. Anybody who can win the hammer and turn around and go win WAF in 2 classes, you know, a month later is a bad dude.
There's exceptional pull, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. But it does set up some interesting conversations where you think to yourself, I mean, you've already said what you think about Sam. You know, you think you could handle Sam. You talked about Tony, but is it going to be the same Tony? Tony's fresh off surgery. He had issues with the weight, obviously, as well, although Tony is a very, very strong man. Janis was the guy next in line for the shot at Sam. That match is going to happen. You've got other guys in there that are exciting. You've got guys like Greg Gray, Doug Ehrlich, Mindaugas Teresatis, guys that are Tom Holland, big lightweight. You know, guys
that are. A lot
of
people don't think he's that big. I've pulled Tom on the side. Yeah, he's legit. He's legit as they come. He kind of screwed himself with Janis.
Yeah, well, I think also the other thing is, I know people might think because I'm a Brit, I'm making excuses for Tom. Really not. I genuinely don't give a who wins. It just doesn't matter to me. I think Tom's time will come, and, you know, I don't need to talk for him. He'll do his own talking. But what I would say is that I'm very aware of Tom's situation and where he's been. And I can assure everybody, Tom Holland, you ain't seen the best of that kid, because he's had serious wrist issues, which has kept him out of all national competition for more than 2 years on the right hand. So, when he's fully healed and back in the mix, he's got a lot of potential, great deal of potential. But it sets great stuff with you, doesn't it? I mean, so many.
Well, I was in his corner that day, and you know, I was trying to give him a little bit of advice on pulling Janis, which I'm sure he didn't need it, but that may explain why he didn't do some of the things I was, you know, suggesting. But
couldn't top roll. Couldn't.
Yeah.
Or have damage in his wrist.
It's hard to top roll Janis to begin with, but, you know, if you can match his top roll and sink that hook in, you know, that's where it's at. But and I pulled with Tom in the hotel room afterwards. Strong individual. I also pulled Janis wouldn't pull me, even though we both pulled super matches. Yeah. But I did pull what's his name? Vlad the Destroyer.
Okay, yeah.
I pulled with him. Inside it was it went one way both ways, if you know what I mean. Like here, you know,
you top,
and here, yeah. And which I'm gonna tell you, the more I pull the Europeans, they pull differently. They don't know how to slow pull. You know, it's bang. and you're going.
Past Twitch 1 inch, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sitting over here smiling. You know, we're having a beer and we're locking up, and boom, shit. You know, can we slow it down? My arm hurts.
But all about that acceleration, isn't it? Momentum, influx.
Yeah, but that guy too. He's going to be something serious. Tom is exceptional though. It surprised me how well he does in a hook. For his arm, you know, for his build and everything. I'm like, man, I think I just top roll, you know. But
I think it's actually benefited his hook. The fact that he's had so many injuries on the right arm with the top roll, he's had to go more towards that inside. I think the other dynamic that people are going to see a great deal more when Tom comes back to form is that his game will have changed significantly. I think it'll make a hell of a difference and make people see where he used to be at. If you watch a lot of Tom prior to that, prior to the injuries, he was always on that top roll, and he always had that explosive top roll. His matches against VRL Dobrin, against Joseph Love, you could see him at work there, but after the damage, that was the end of that, and he was all hook. So probably some benefit come out of that for Tom, I would think, in the long run.
Definitely. Well, I've had similar issues. I had similar issues after pulling Janis. I started pulling heavier weights, and even most of the time 76 and 85, which is where I feel most comfortable. I got to where nobody could top roll me because my top roll defense was so good that I just flat hand them over. And I got to where I wouldn't use my offensive top roll. You know, I would just kind of clamp down with some back pressure. I never used pronation or anything like that. And then when I'd go to some of these higher level competitions, I'd be slow. I'd be, you know, just trying to defend and find myself in losing positions and having to fight back. And that contests to a lot of things. That contests to you not having strong enough partners in practice, you know, to make you work that. Or you not putting yourself in position where you have to work that. You know, you're just building strength, not really working on your craft. And, you know, that's the small stuff I've been slowly whittling down in training. You know, what do we not need at all? Let's throw it out of there, get it out.
Yeah.
Like, we don't slip in practice. We don't, you know, most of our matches go straight in the strap. You know, we do timed matches now. We wait to the end of practice to do ready goes where you're not as strong and acceptable to injuries and, you know, things of that nature. But similar things, you know, injuries is that's how my side pressure developed. Was, you know, this part of my wrist, you know, jacking up. This part, that tennis elbow, when that starts flaring up, it's all hook. It's no top roll.
Funny, it can seem like real dark days at the time when you pick up an injury like that, but if you embrace it for what it is, you do make strides forward. And it's interesting to I think in the next episode, mate, we can get more into that refinement process that we've really clearly seen in your game. But guys, we're going to wrap up this episode now with Justin, but I want you guys to put your comments for questions that you want the Bama Bull to answer. If you've got any areas that you particularly want us to take this with Justin, and there's a lot of places I do personally, then let us know in the comments. Let us know what you want to talk to Justin about, and we'll do that. Pretty open book, as you know. Justin's not backwards about coming forwards, so it'll be great to get your comments, guys. Let us know what you want to ask this man, and we will do that in the next episode. Justin, firstly, I want to thank you for your time, mate, in this first episode, deep inside with the Bama Bull, ladies and gents. And we got a lot of road still to travel, mate. I want to open up your mind on the whole World Arm Wrestling League situation, and I'm going to do that lightweight and middleweight, because obviously I feel you can transition across the weight classes, and it's great that you've mentioned that might be at the back of your mind too. Ladies and gents, if this is your first visit to Supernatural Strength, please like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know about it. I hope you're all safe and well, guys. I hope your families are safe and well. And until we do the next episode with Justin, take it easy, peeps.